Isn't it a World War scenario? Let's take a look. Afghanistan, in conflict with the Taliban and ISIS-K. The reason? A fight for control and survival after decades of war. India, in conflict with Pakistan over Kashmir and China over borders. Internally, Maoist insurgents challenge stability. Pakistan, in conflict with the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan and insurgents in Balochistan. The reason? Terrorism and separatism. Myanmar, in conflict with ethnic armed groups and the National Unity Government. The reason? A brutal military coup and ethnic divisions. The Philippines, in conflict with Abu Sayyaf and communist insurgents. The reason? Extremism and ideological battles. China, in conflict with Uyghur minorities internally and with India over territorial disputes. The reason? Human rights suppression and border tensions. North Korea, in conflict with South Korea. The reason? A war technically never ended, with threats still looming. Armenia and Azerbaijan, in conflict over Nagorno-Karabakh. The reason? Ethnic and territorial disputes. Thailand, in conflict with insurgents in the south. The reason? Religious and ethnic separatism. Papua, Indonesia, in conflict with independence movements. The reason? Calls for freedom from Jakarta's control. Now the Middle East. Syria, in conflict with rebels, ISIS, and Kurdish forces. The reason? A civil war that spiraled into a proxy battle. Yemen, in conflict with the Houthis and a Saudi-led coalition. The reason? A devastating proxy war. Iraq, in conflict with ISIS and other militant groups. The reason? A fractured nation fighting extremism. Israel, in conflict with Hamas and Hezbollah. The reason? Territorial disputes and ideological clashes. Lebanon, in conflict with Hezbollah factions internally. The reason? Political and sectarian rivalries. Turkey, in conflict with the PKK and involved in the Syrian war. The reason? Kurdish independence and regional ambitions. Africa, Ethiopia, in conflict with the Tigray region and Oromo groups. The reason? Ethnic and political disputes. Sudan, in conflict between the RSF and government forces. The reason? A brutal power struggle. Somalia, in conflict with al-Shabaab. The reason? Islamist extremism. The Central African Republic, in conflict with rebel groups. The reason? A fight for power and resources. Mali, in conflict with jihadist groups and Tuareg rebels. The reason? Terrorism and separatism. Niger, in conflict with Islamist insurgents. The reason? Growing extremism in the Sahel. BurkinaFaso, in conflict with jihadist groups. The reason? A spiraling security crisis. Nigeria, in conflict with Boko Haram and herder-farmer clashes. The reason? Extremism and ethnic violence. Libya, in conflict between rival factions. The reason? A broken nation post-Gaddafi. The Democratic Republic of Congo, in conflict with M23 rebels and militias. The reason? Resource wars and ethnic clashes. Chad, in conflict with armed groups. The reason? Political instability. Mozambique, in conflict with Islamist insurgents in Cabo Delgado. The reason? Control of resources. Cameroon, in conflict with Anglophone separatists. The reason? Marginalization and independence demands. South Sudan, in conflict with ethnic rivalries and militias. The reason? A fragile peace torn apart. Europe, Ukraine, in conflict with Russia. The reason? Invasion and territorial annexation. Kosovo, in conflict with Serbia. The reason? A battle over recognition and independence. Georgia, in conflict over Abkhazia and South Ossetia. The reason? Russian-backed separatism. Turkey, still in conflict with the Kurdish population. The reason? Autonomy and independence. The Americas. Colombia, in conflict with ELN and FARC dissidents. The reason? Drug trade and unresolved grievances. Mexico, in conflict with drug cartels. The reason? A war on organized crime. Haiti, in conflict with gang violence. The reason? A breakdown of governance. Venezuela, in conflict with armed groups in border areas. The reason? Political and economic collapse. Oceania, Papua New Guinea, in conflict with Bougainville independence movements. The reason? Calls for sovereignty. In disputed regions. Western Sahara, in conflict with Morocco. The reason? A long fight for self-determination. South China Sea, in conflict between China, the Philippines, Vietnam, and others. The reason? Territorial claims over valuable waters. So, I ask again, isn't this a world war scenario? A planet gripped by violence, disputes, and unrest. What will it take for peace to prevail? Like, share, and subscribe. Please leave your comments below.